Hello, hello. So, welcome. It's Friday, March 24th. I am so excited to be here with you today. And I'm Nicole Andrews, the Career Disruptor, and this is the Career Disruptor Advantage Weekly Live Show. Now, this week is all about supporting other women at work. So, this is Women's History Month. It's almost a wrap for Women's History Month 2023. So, I wanted to talk about this topic that tends to be a little taboo because people don't talk about it, right? We're here, and the reason why I've trademarked the career disruptor, the reason why career disruption means so much uh, to me and for serving you and in the work that I do is because I feel like these topics are very difficult to talk about in the workplace. So I want to bring this unique perspective to you and things that we traditionally won't talk about or go as deep on so that way you can have these conversations. So it's not just about my perspective, it's also about bringing in your unique perspective, having you comment, share your thoughts, share your ideas around the topics that I'm sharing every single week. So let's dive in. As you know, it's unscripted, but I do have my notes because I want to make sure that we get to the meat of this topic today, which is I'm going to give you 5 strategies. And the first one is I want you to think about this from your perspective, your experience at work. How are you lifting other women up? And how are they lifting you up? So, again, how are you lifting other women up? And how are they lifting you up? So, when I think about this particular topic, do you have someone that you're around that's gossiping about other women? Do you have someone who's around you who is always tearing down other women? If so, that could drain your energy. And when we think about women supporting other women at work, a lot of times there's this emotional labor. There's an emotional labor that women take on because they feel like they have to take all of those things and they can't really separate what's when someone's venting or versus when they're actually just complaining. And it's almost like they don't want to solve it. They just want to complain about it, not really work through solutions. And sometimes you need to just vent. We all have been there. I've been there where you just need to get something off of your chest. But supporting other women at work does not look like being the dumping ground for all of the issues that other women may have in the workplace, or vice versa, where you're just the dumping ground to them for all of your issues and all of your concerns. And so I want to, and I know if you're listening to this is probably not something that you do, right? But you may have been on the other side of it, or if you're on the cusp of it just because you're exhausted, you're burnt out at work, all of these things are going on right now where you just feel like this emotional toll is on you. One way to combat that is really again lifting other women up. And I'm going to give you some more tips. So make sure you stay tuned. But lifting other women up, not gossiping. I have 2 questions that I like to ask if someone talks to me about someone else, especially another woman in the workplace. One is, have you had that conversation with that person, that specifically that woman in the workplace? And if not, are you willing to have that conversation? Because when I have talked about things or had, situations where I've had some challenges or even conflict, I will go to the person and have that conversation with them. But what I find is that a lot of people won't. They'll just keep talking about it, but never with the intent of talking to that person about it. And the things that they're telling me about that person is not something that they would share with that person. So from supporting other women from that whole perspective, I do want you to think about how are you lifting other women up? And if you do have challenges with other women, the gossiping, the sabotaging and backstabbing, it's tough. How can you confront that person in a positive way? When I say confrontation doesn't have to be again unhealthy. It's just how do you have a conversation to understand that person's perspective and vice versa, share your perspective. Because there was a study that showed that 80% of women feel like they have been under some type of sabotage or attack by other women in the workplace. That's a very, very sad statistic where and they're saying that most of it comes from other women, whereas when they looked at men, men don't discriminate when it comes to uh sabotage or gossip or anything like that. And really, that's not something that we even talk about when we talk about men. So it's different. It's not by gender. If obviously, I guess this study is saying that if there are men who bully, they bully no matter what the gender is, whereas women tend to bully each other. There can be this sabotage and gossiping. And again, these are very difficult topics, which is why I like to bring them out here because I want to have this safe space where you can kind of process, you can maybe take this back, have a conversation around it and say, "Hey, I really really would love to have a conversation with you about my perspective around our relationship." And I've done that. Again, I'm not sharing things that I haven't done. I had tension with with actually a boss really early in my career, and I didn't know where it was coming from. I really didn't understand it, and I had to sit down and ask, "Hey, I feel like there's some tension there." And she reassured me there wasn't, but it was just very tense all the time, and honestly, I had to step back and realize that it may not have been about me. It could have been that her tension was coming from home. Her tension could be coming from something else personal that she's dealing with, or her boss. So sometimes it's also pulling ourselves out of something and not taking it personal as well. So the second one, this is one of my favorite ones because it's one that I talk about in my Career Disruptor Lab course. And this whole concept is called air cover. So if you haven't heard about air cover is where when someone, usually someone who has influence, someone who is maybe even your boss, they will advocate for you and speak up for you, not after the meeting, not on the side when when everyone else is talking. They will actually give you air cover during a meeting publicly in front of everyone else. So this has happened a few times in my career where I'm the expert in the room on that particular topic. There are other experts in the room on their topic. I'm not an expert on everything. So there's different people, right, in the room who are experts in what they do. And but everyone else is speaking on my topic. And so someone will say, "Hey, I think Nicole wanted to share something, or Nicole had something that, maybe this is her area. Let's hear from her." And I've had a leader who did this as well. And he said, "We've talked about this, but I really want to hear from Nicole because this is what she wakes up doing every single day. This is what she wakes up thinking about every day. So I want to hear from her." And was in a room full of C-suite level executives. This was again kind of several, like maybe over a decade ago. But it was just so phenomenal to see that leader look at me and say, "Hey, I'd love to hear your perspective in a room full of other leaders," because you could tell everyone was just jumping in and trying to insert their opinion. And it's not that I'm not assertive. Anyone who knows me and who's worked with me would probably actually say, "Wow, didn't even know that," because Nicole always speaks up. I haven't, well, I shouldn't say always. Early in my career, I had a manager who actually challenged me, which I'm gonna go to here in a second, but challenged me to speak up more, and so after that, couldn't shut me up, right? So I think it's that way where you sometimes need air cover, especially when you're at different points in your career. Maybe you're dealing with things as well where you don't feel as comfortable maybe speaking out or speaking up. And so giving someone cover, speaking up for them, giving them a chance to work things out, or if you know that they're going through a tough time. I've had situations with my team where I've actually had to cover in the past when I was in corporate. Even though I knew that they had things going on, I could not share that publicly. I did not want to share that publicly. And so I gave them time and really advocated for them, even when they weren't in the room. And air cover, a lot of times, again, you are in the room. So I'm going to stop there because I think I've covered air cover, but look it up. And as a woman, I think it's even more critical. For you to give air cover to other women. I've had women also do that for me, where they've given me air cover. If someone's talking over me, or if someone won't hear my perspective, they're saying, "Hey, I think we need to listen because Nicole is trying to share something that maybe we haven't considered before." And again, I don't have any problem speaking up, but I'm not going to also, sometimes I pull back to observe just to see what people are going to do in a room. Are they going to be inclusive of me? Are they going to leverage my opinion? Are they going, and again, when I do feel like I need to, I will step in and say something, but I'm not going to always usually be the first person to speak up because I want to hear from other people, but I will always make sure I speak up at some point in a meeting. So that's a whole other topic. I always make sure my presence is known, but I'm not necessarily going to always be the one to jump in right away because I'm picking up, I'm pulling, I'm connecting dots from the other people in the room. The third thing that women can do to support other women at work is collaborate. Collaborate. So collaboration over competition. And when I think about this one, there's this fear of, being seen as confrontational, or there's also this fear of women, feeling like, gosh, there's only one spot, or I don't want to advocate for myself because I don't want people to perceive me in this way. But when we think about collaboration over competition, it's really tying back to this whole bias called tug of war bias. And again, you can look it up. But the tug of war bias is when there's usually limited spots or one spot for a minority group, or even like for, again, in this case, women, underrepresented groups in the workplace, where they're trying to vie and they're trying to, really promote themselves so they can get that one spot. And what ends up happening in the workplace, there are unhealthy environments where women literally will almost step over each other to get to that one spot. Not always intentional, right? I'm not saying that women do that. Every woman does that intentionally. It's just something that happens because of the way that the work environment is set up. And if you see limited people at a certain level, you see less representation, you see a few women at that certain level, then it's often you're oftentimes not going to necessarily support another woman unless that's just something that you inherently do, and something that you inherently know that, hey, I need to do this. And we've seen that in the workplace where there's this competition versus, hey, I'm going to help you out because I know that if I share my knowledge with you, if I share information with you, if I support you, then that's going to open up doors for me, because I'm just going to believe and trust that it will open up doors for me versus, well, gosh, if I help you, that means that you're going to get ahead and I won't get ahead. I even do that on social. Like, I think for me personally, I love collaborating. So even though it's me and you talking in my membership, I have women come in and speak and in my programs. And it's just phenomenal because these are amazing women sharing amazing advice, and it's just a great safe space for people to be in so we can collaborate. We don't have to worry about competition. It is a safe space for the women that I serve through my courses and memberships. So I just want you to think about, from the tug of war standpoint, how can you how can you support another woman's advancement? Promote her on social, maybe. If you see someone, I always try to go in and like posts. I try to reshare a post if I can. I'm not perfect at it. That's one of my focus, is really to highlight this year. So hopefully you're seeing that. But I really do want to promote other women. And when I go into organizations, my job is to help with leadership development. So helping leaders understand how to support all people in the organization, no matter who they are. But for my coaching, my career coaching, I focus on women. So it's really trying to help ensure that there's this healthy collaboration where I'm sharing, I'm highlighting, I'm saying, "Hey, this person is great at what they do." Those things matter. They make a difference. And just how can I shout out another woman, especially if I have influence in a certain area and I can help promote them or help advocate for them or help shine a light on them? I do want to do that. So again, how can you do that in the workplace? And if someone's not doing that for you, again, how can you highlight that and say, hey, I really would love your support here? Because again, it may go back to asking for help as well. So we talked about lifting women up, not gossiping. Number two was air cover, speaking up for other women in meetings and having someone who really will give you air cover as well. We also talked about collaboration over competition. And the fourth one is challenging and championing. So when I think about this one, women feel like they have to choose between being a good colleague and a good friend. So it's this battle of, well, I can't challenge this person because we're supposed to be friends, right? We're friends, and maybe they have influence over you. They could even be your boss, or maybe they're your boss's boss. I have no idea. But a lot of times it's like, well, gosh, if I challenge them or give them feedback or have any type of constructive criticism, then I'm going to lose that relationship. I'm going to lose that friendship and that advocacy. But if I don't challenge them and if I only champion them, then I could also be hurting myself because I know that there's something there. Maybe there's some feedback that you like to give them to help improve the relationship, as I talked about earlier, but we're just championing them, and so there's a disconnect because all we're doing is championing, but we're not really challenging, or we're challenging and we're not championing, and we have to balance that. So to support other women in the workplace, and if you're listening to this replay, I want you to think about how can you listen as women are talking in your own environment, and if you're not a woman, right? How can you listen in and see who's championing other women who are not in the room? Who's championing them when they are in the room? Who's also challenging? What I find is that sometimes women are also afraid, not just women, but again, the focus is on women supporting women on today's topic. So I want to, it's this whole premise that, you know, I don't want to accept feedback. There are some people who I've actually heard say they do not do well with constructive feedback or criticism. And that can hurt your career as well, because if no one's able to give you feedback, or you always maybe pull back when they're giving you feedback, so they soften it a bit and you really don't get the true feedback that you need, that can hurt other women. And so even if you are a woman and you are a leader and you are a phenomenal leader, if you don't challenge your team, you could also be hurting them as well. So think about how can you challenge in a positive way while still uplifting, but giving them the feedback and the push that they need, because again, sometimes people back away from being challenged or being pushed because they're not used to that. um, but there's a way to do that where you can still lift them up and then also champion them too, because 90% of the time should be championing them. But there's also a percentage of time where you need to spend giving them some real feedback too. So the last thing that I'm going to share quick behind the scenes before I drop off today. But the last thing that I will share is being liked or being respected, the good old double bind. So I learned about this in one of my corporate roles, that I was in charge of helping with our women's affinity group or program. And it was something that I kind of came into on the back end, and then we started to build out others over time. But it was so interesting because there's this whole concept that we started to talk about and that I learned about from this group called the double bind dilemma. And the double bind dilemma, if you haven't heard it, is where women feel this dilemma between being liked and being respected. So there's this whole, should I just appease everybody and please everybody, and almost, my primary desire is to be liked. So therefore, you might feel like you're being pushed over a lot or taken advantage of because you want to be liked so much. And then there's this other side, well, maybe you don't wanna be liked as much because you don't wanna be quote unquote, a pushover, but are not you're respected, but you're not really liked, and so therefore people don't like being around you. Yes, they have a lot of respect for you and your expertise, but they don't really like you as a person. Um, or they see you as bossy or pushy. We've heard those terms, which are again not something I condone in terms of how we speak about other women, but we know those terms, right? Well, she's bossy, she's pushy, she's demanding, she's this, but really there's an element of respect there. So it's trying this double bind dilemma is you can either be liked or respected, but women, it's very hard for them to have both. So me even sharing my perspective and doing something different this year, I'm sure it's turned some people away, it's turned some people off because I haven't talked this much on camera outside of when I'm in big rooms full of a lot of people at a conference speaking, which is very different because I bring a lot of energy and I try to, I'm moving around the room and all of these things. So it's very different than just being behind a camera. I actually would prefer to be in a room, right, full of people. So that will happen one day. In terms of my own events and things that I want to put on. But I do speak at conferences. I do speak at other events. I have paid summits and things like that I'm asked to speak at. But the reason I bring that up is because it's just hard to share your perspective without not offending someone. And so, again, I think about that all of the time, but I try not to worry about that, because if I worry about that and I think about women in history, if they worried about that, they would not have been able to advance the way that we've seen some. We know we have a long way to go in a lot of different areas and across a lot of different diversity aspects. But we've also come a long way, where you have women graduating more at a higher rate than men. You have, and again, this is not about bashing men or anything like that. It's just more so like you have women who are really trying to push forward, more women in the workplace than we've had, although those numbers are starting to decline since the pandemic and also due to childcare. But we still know that getting out there, sharing your perspective, being seen in the room, being heard is something that is going to help advance not just us, but all women. So, with that, we talked about lifting up other women. We've talked about, and not gossiping, we talked about giving them air cover. We talked about collaborating, not competing. So, doing whatever you can to collaborate with other women to shine a light on them. We talked about challenging and championing women. So, being able to provide tough feedback. And yes, sometimes that may be a little demanding for some, but being able to balance that so they can also stretch and grow. And then also trying to really not even balance the being liked or respected. It's just be who you are, and whoever will like you no matter what your perspective is, and they will respect you no matter what your perspective is. And the ones who won't are the ones who never were. Um, so with that, I'm going to share a little quick behind the scenes, but I want to bring this all together too with there's a show, I won't name the show here, but really quickly, there's a show where this director did something, this creator of the show, I should say, had an all-female director cast. So if you know this, you can type it in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. I'll be happy to chime in and let you know if that's it or not. Maybe we'll have a little trivia. But this creator of the show said, I want to. She went to a very influential person to run the show on her network. And she said, I want an all-female director cast. Because traditionally directors tend to skew heavily male. So she did that. And over, I believe it was 7, 8 seasons. I could be wrong, every single different she had female directors, and I think she ended up with about 43, 44 female directors who directed different episodes throughout all of those seasons. And she did a special on these women, just talking about the phenomenal, the richness, the depth of the show, because she got to see it from an all-female director cast lens, and how even the actors who were both male, female, or binary, even how them being on the show and all of these other things, where they said, wow, it's just different to work with a female director, because they had never worked with a female director before. So I share that because if you are wanting to support other women at work, we have to see women, not just one, not just two, but we have to see other women in the room. And we can't have other women in the room unless they're supporting each other. I've been in rooms where, again, there are some women who support, and there are others who you can tell they don't. They're threatened in some way. And that, not just by me, but maybe by other women, by their leverage, their influence, their knowledge, their expertise. And we have to stop. We have to end this whole unhealthy competition and really boost up other women. The beauty of these female directors was that many of them went on to work on some, they said, projects that they would have never even had the door or the opportunity to work on if they hadn't have worked on this show. So what does that do? That means that we have now 44 plus directors who are now ready to go into direct other movies, direct other films, direct other documentaries, or whatever they will do. And then no one can say that they don't have a rich resume, because she's given them those opportunities to, they've directed entire seasons, entire shows, entire episodes. So that's what supporting other women looks like. I wanted to give you a real example of that today. And I want you to take this conversation back, take it back into your workplace. Again, it's not just about my perspective. Take it back, have a discussion of your own around this. of how can we support other women? What are some things that seeing where women are tearing other women down? What are some things that we're seeing where someone's not giving someone air cover, or they're competing with them versus really collaborating with them in a healthy way? Or they're calling them pushy or bossy because they do challenge other people. They do make people stretch and grow. They do make people step outside of their comfort zone. And so we have to really support other women in unique ways in order to also be our own. I hear a lot about gender parity, and we absolutely need to focus on that and make sure there's balance there as well. And I know a lot of people are fighting for that. I want to make sure that we, though, as women, support each other. And I want to be involved in bringing a diverse group of women together in a way that's never been done before. And I don't know what that's going to look like or exactly how. I have my membership, I have my courses, but don't know how this will all evolve, but I do know that my vision is very strong to see women come together in a way that I don't think we've even united and come together before. So, with that said, I want to just wrap up with a quick behind the scenes. I am working on this career wellness check in week. It's the Career Visibility Boot Camp. And if you want to know more, if you want to hear more details, make sure you get on my email list because that's where you'll hear it first. So it's going to be thenicoleandrews.com/LinkedIn. So if you're seeing me here on LinkedIn, that will let me know that you saw me here. So thenicoleandrews.com/LinkedIn is where you'll go to get more details on that boot camp. And that it's basically a career wellness check-in, a 3-day, 3 steps challenge to help you get more visibility in your career, but also check in on some of the key areas that will position you to make sure that you have the mobility that you need inside or outside of your current company. So make sure you check that out, sign up for the email list, reshare this video, or at least share the link to have other women sign up to get more details once that launches in mid-April. It will be a free career wellness check-in over 3 days. You don't want to miss it. So with that, I want you to always remember to disrupt the status quo on purpose and to change this world. Create the things you wish existed, my friend. Have a happy Friday.